So what happens when one of history's most powerful kings is also one of its most brilliant scholars? I mean, is that even possible? To be a warrior and a philosopher, a ruler and a poet, all at the same time? Well, today we're going to look at the absolutely astonishing life of a king whose resume seems, well, completely impossible.
Okay, just get ready for this. When you picture a king's resume, you're probably thinking, warfare, statecraft, that sort of thing. But what if that same resume also included philosopher, poet, architect, grammarian, a leading theorist on yoga, a medical writer, and a political scientist? And listen, these weren't just hobbies. He was a master of them all while also running a powerful kingdom. That was Raja Bhoja.
So that's the big puzzle we're tackling here. How could one guy, living way back in the 11th century, master so many incredibly difficult fields, all while running and defending an entire kingdom? To really wrap your head around this, just try to imagine a modern world leader who is also a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, a Pulitzer-winning poet, and the world-famous architect behind the nation's most iconic buildings. It sounds made up, right? It's absurd, but that's the level of accomplishment we're talking about with Raja Bhoja. Okay. So we've established his resume is just wild. But who was this guy, really? Let's ground this larger-than-life figure in some actual history. So this isn't some myth or legend. Raja Bhoja was a real-deal, flesh-and-blood king. He was a powerful ruler from the Paramara dynasty in medieval India, and he was a major political and military force in his day, known for both his sharp mind and his absolute authority. And we can pinpoint exactly when he lived. He was born around the year 1000, and his reign lasted for almost half a century, from about 1010 to 1055. He ruled from his capital, Dara, a city that he personally transformed into one of the most important intellectual hubs of the era.
Right, and it's so important to get this. His scholarship wasn't some side hustle. It was deep, it was original, and it was massively influential. So let's try to get inside the mind of this scholar king by taking a look at some of the stuff he actually wrote. All right, first up, let's talk philosophy and yoga. He wrote this famous commentary on the Yoga Sutras, which is one of the foundational texts of yoga. But he didn't just explain it, no. He made this incredible argument that the self-mastery you learn from yoga wasn't just for, personal enlightenment. He said it was the very foundation of the right to rule. For him, it was simple. To rule other people, you first have to rule yourself. But don't think he was just some stoic philosopher. This guy was also a master of aesthetics and art. He wrote one of the most important works on poetics and literary theory in the entire Sanskrit tradition, digging into how art actually creates emotion in us. This book was so huge, so comprehensive, it basically cemented his reputation as one of India's greatest thinkers on art. And this is where it gets even more amazing. His knowledge wasn't just abstract stuff in his head, it was incredibly practical. He wrote this massive book on architecture that covered everything from how to build temples and plan entire cities to how to design complex machines. It just shows a mind that was totally at home with both deep philosophy and hands-on engineering. Which brings us back to that big question, right? How did he do it? How did these two completely different worlds, the powerful, often brutal life of a king and the deep, quiet life of a scholar, come together in one person? I mean, just look at this incredible balancing act. On one side, you have the ruler, defending the kingdom, leading armies, administering justice. And on the other, you have the scholar, writing dozens of books, mastering grammar, and pushing the boundaries of philosophy. It's a duality that seems, well, almost superhuman. Well, the answer lies in this really powerful cultural idea, the Rajarshi, or the king's sage. This was the ideal of a ruler whose right to power came directly from their wisdom and their self-control. For the Rajarshi, power wasn't just something you inherited or took by force, it was justified by your intellectual and moral authority. Raja Bhoja didn't just admire this ideal, he became it. And what's really cool is, he didn't hoard this knowledge. He used his power as king to create a whole intellectual ecosystem. His court at Darabhadra became this legendary hub for learning, a place where he wasn't just a rich guy writing checks for scholars. No, he was an active participant, right there in the thick of it, debating with the greatest thinkers of his time.
So, why does the story of an 11th century king who wrote books on grammar and yoga still matter to us today? What is his ultimate legacy?
See, his legacy goes way beyond any battle he won or book he wrote. He became a symbol. For centuries after he died, in Indian culture, the very name Bhoja, became shorthand for the perfect king. A ruler who wasn't just strong, but was also deeply learned, just, and wise.
If you could boil his entire incredible life down to one core idea, one that weaves through everything he did, from yoga to statecraft, it would be this: true authority begins with mastery of the self. That was the philosophical bedrock of his entire life.
And that leaves us with a timeless question, one that's just as relevant in our world as it was in his. The life of Raja Bhoja forces us to stop and ask, what does it truly mean for power to be guided by wisdom? And what could our world look like if it were?